Good morning. Welcome back to Tesla Tech Extraordinary Technology Conference 2016. This morning, we have an opportunity to hear from a very interesting fellow. Brian David Andersen is a founder of the Tri-Vortex Technology company. He's an independent researcher, inventor, and scientist for many decades. And he's going to be speaking on stem cell stimulation using that Tri-Vortex technology. I want you to give a warm welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess I hit the wrong button. Alrighty, very good. Again, I'm Brian David Andersen. I am an independent researcher, inventor, and scientist, and Nemenha medicine man. I do not have a college degree. This individual, Lester Estrada, came to me in November of 2015. He was a crane operator at San Pedro Harbor. He developed B-cell lymphoma in the neck area. He then, the doctors, of course, advised him to have chemotherapy, radiation, etc. He made the decision not to do that. I had nothing to do with that decision whatsoever. He then found me through a mutual friend, and again, he started up what was called the stem cell stimulation protocols. We're now looking at two tests. The top one is a needle biopsy that was done in November of 2015. It now describes, and I have this on the website, Tri-Vortex website. We can't totally see it all here, but basically I'll give a summary of what they're seeing is a very large 2 nodes of lymphoma on the left neck area. And when he informed the doctors that he was not going to do radiation or chemotherapy, that he said if they didn't do that, he would be dead in 3 months. He then went through the stem cell protocols for Tri-Vortex Technology. In February of 2016, he then had a PET scan done, and his doctors did not know at that time what he was doing with Tri-Vortex Technology. However, they did acknowledge that his nodes that he had were totally gone. They were expecting in his PET scan to totally light up like a Christmas tree. They expected to have basically to spread everywhere. What basically the test says in February of 2016, no cancer anywhere. Was this a fluke? In March of 2016, another individual came to me with B-cell lymphoma. He had had it for 3 years. He was a civilian working in Afghanistan and was basically poisoned. And for 3 years, he had been now dealing with his lymphoma. What he could not get down was his SID rate. Basically, what SID does, it looks at your infection rate. And he was always spiking at tremendously high in his SID rates. He went through then the stem cell protocols, and fortunately, he did have a test right before he started the stem cell, and he had this very high SID rate, indicating high infection. He then went through the stem cell protocols, and then 2 weeks after he had finished that, he went through another SID test, and he now brought his SID rate down to almost to a normal rate. So this was not a fluke. There's something to the stem cell. A 56-year-old woman a 56-year-old woman had congestive heart failure, and her grandparents, both sets of her grandparents had died of, and her parents had either had or died of congestive heart failure. Pardon me. I probably shouldn't have brought that topic up, but it's very much of the history, so just give me a moment here. I didn't expect this. So this 56-year-old woman then started exhibiting her own congestive heart failure. She had the typical swelling of the feet and the pain down the arm. So I put her on a special protocol for the stem cell stimulator. An EKG was done, and it indicated that she was in massive heart failure, and that she probably had a mild heart attack 3 years prior. She had a second EKG done, and the first EKG was done by a general practitioner. The second one was done at a hospital, and both of the EKGs said that she probably could not do a treadmill. She had to do a nuclear test, which is basically a walking type of exercise. And then they check out the heart rate, the heart functions, and et cetera. So I put her on a real special type of stem cell and added different type of ingredients and et cetera. And through a very kind of like a synchronicity, is that her this nuclear test kept being delayed, not by us, but by the medical staff at the hospital. So she went with a whole month where she was doing 2 stem cells a day with this special ingredients. And the nuclear test came back. The congestive heart failure was gone. Why I'm so emotional is that 56-year-old woman is my wife. Hell of a way to save your marriage, isn't it? So, did this all happen in a vacuum? Was I come down to the Ashtar Command and they take care of me and give me all this information? Well, no, it didn't happen that way. It has an evolution, and come back again. Basically, one of the foundations for the stem cell stimulator is, believe it or not, is just a plain old amplifier. And we use the positive and negative poles. And this is one of the key areas of stem cell stimulation. Again, we're going to get into a little bit about a whole thing about stem cells, but where I really began was in the whole area of hydration. So again, how much water is in your body? Basically, we look at it that the body has all these, basically we're bags of water walking around in the skin. And so proper levels of water hydration equals health, vitality, and high energy. And basically now the 28 years that I've been in all of this research is that we have the lower levels of water in your body, or dehydration, is fatigue and disease. Dehydration is the major contributing factor to all diseases. What do you try to do with stem cells? And what is a stem cell? Stem cell is generated in the bone marrow. And basically you have 2 things that you want to do with a stem cell. You first off want to generate it, and second off is when the stem cell comes out, its DNA is partially turned off. It's very metaphysical, the way that stem cells actually work. They're floating around the body, and basically then they need to turn their DNA on, and they turn the DNA on wherever is needed. The heart, the lungs, wherever it's needed, it turns itself on. So basically, we first off have to generate the stem cell, and second off, we have to turn it on. And so basically, the research that I've done over the years is one of the most basic ways to generate a stem cell and turn on the DNA is by proper water hydration. So that's real simple. We're going to talk about a lot of other real technical things here, but yes, there is a lot of things that are going to happen where we're going to go many places with stem cells. but still the responsibility for stem cells is yours and your proper water hydration. My business partner and I, who is a medical doctor, we went and talked to one of the top stem cell people in Florida. He has a clinic there, and there was people there in the lobbies that when we were waiting, they were sitting there talking about their Lear jets. And so he was very, very successful. And I asked the doctor, I said, well, what do you talk to your patients about hydration? And he looked at me like I was from the planet Mars. And now again, it's basically as if you're even going to go through standard stem cell, which means is they take the blood out of your body, or they'll take the fat, they centrifuge it, they take off the stem cells, and they put it back into the body. We're not doing any of that here with the stem cell stimulation whatsoever. But that's the standard way of doing it. And again, why they have such a high failure rate, I believe, is because they're not emphasizing one of the most basic things, and that's proper water hydration. I keep hitting the wrong button. I developed what is called the Tri-Vortex disc, and basically any type of liquid that goes onto this disc now has a high absorption type of manner. Again, we're going to try to move through this type of quickly. I'm going to give a type of a background because we really want to emphasize the stem cell stimulator, but we have to give a background to Tri-Vortex Technology. And basically, again, now what the disc does is to change the molecular structure of water and to make it more wet. And again, there's all sorts of plant studies we've done on the website, basically proving or indicating that the disc does work. Persons who have come by the booth already, we've done taste tests and smell tests with water, and we also do it with juice and wine and etc. So this is how I first started into it. Pat Flanagan had some drops that was called Crystal Energy. I used them back in 1988. I was really turned on about it, but the stuff was totally expensive. Now I found out also that there's actually soap in it. That's basically a surfactant that actually makes it work. It is called Trinitron X. But I wanted to come up with a technology that would now replace this drops. And this is what the Tri-Vortex disc has done that, and it went far, far beyond anywhere what I started out in 1988. And again, I wrote a book. It's up on the website. I did have some copies here. I've already sold out on them. And so but you can find this book on the website. It's for free. It's a PDF file, and it's called Super Hydrate and Charge Your Cells, and I talk all about hydration and covering the whole thing about the disc, etc., my take on hydration. And again, for myself, I'm 63 years old. I play full court basketball with 20-year-olds. The last time that I ever made an appointment with a doctor was when I was 23 years old. And I've now gone 40 years basically taking care of myself. In the last 3 years, because of playing basketball, I tore my Achilles tendon, had a small little tear in it. Also, because of a air conditioning leak, I got mold poisoning. I had pustules all over my body. I've been bitten by a brown recluse spider. I've been bitten by a black widow spider. I have had a plantar fasciitis. I have also had a major tooth infection. All of those were taken care of by the stem cell stimulator or Tri-Vortex technology. I have now repeated those things that I did with myself. I've now repeated it with others. And now, again, within 3 sessions, if you have plantar fasciitis, basically the stem cell stimulator will take it out in 3 or 4 sessions. Where this all started, though, was with a person by the name of Cleve Baxter. He was one of the top polygraph examiners in the world, and he lived in San Diego, California. And he and I met through a mutual friend. Actually, it was Linda Goodman, the astrologer. And I had a precursor to the Tri-Vortex disc called Multitrans, and it was doing somewhat the same thing, but it was electronic driven. And I went to Cleve and I said, hey, Cleve, I got this great invention I came up with, and the thing is that we'll take a glass of wine or a bottle of wine, we put it on there, and then if you drink the wine, and then for every 2 glasses of wine you have 1 glass of water, I said, you'll have no hangover whatsoever. And he goes, yeah, okay, and he's sitting there. And so again, Cleve says, well, why don't you come back on Saturday night? And I said, okay. And so he gets not the 750 liters, but he had 2 bottles of wine sitting there. So in the name of science, we drank that wine. And so the next day, I called up Cleve, and he said, now understand, Cleve was one of the top polygraph examiners in the world. And he said, I wasn't exactly truthful with you. I found that always to be kind of a dichotomy there. And so he said, I'm actually allergic to wine. And I said, oh, and he said, basically, I get really, really sick, and so the sulfates and everything. So we had now done our little protocol, and I said, well, how do you feel? And he said, I feel great. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, well, is there any way I can help? And I said, well, I need some lab space. And so basically then, this was now 1992, I had then departed. I was supposed to be coming in for like 3 or 4 months and departing, and I departed in 2006. So it got kind of extended out. Again, we have what's called the Baxter effect. If anybody is, again, Cleve Baxter is also the foundation for the Secret Life of Plants. He actually hooked up a plant to a polygraph exam or instrumentation and showed that there was actually some sort of reaction. It's called The Secret Life of Plants. There's also he also has other books out himself also. So basically now what happened then is I discovered a chemistry book in Cleve's lab. There had been an alchemist who had come through the laboratory and had left this chemistry book. It was dated in 1901. And they had taken the table of elements and put them on a spiral. Now, again, for myself, this was, again, an investigatory. I went 3 years to the University of Missouri. I was a photojournalism major. And then I also did freelance writing, etc. And so I guess basically I'm the very first photojournalist trained at the University of Missouri to reverse cancer and heart disease. There has to be a prize in there somewhere. So anyway, now again using as an investigation type of tool is that to look at this, and I was really intrigued by this chemical element table. Now, previous to this time, again, I was a journalist. We did not have to have any type of science background to be a journalist. Those courses were not required, and I only finished just the basic science courses in high school. So when I looked at this, I was very, very intrigued. So I was given the freedom. I had choices. I could go back into traditional education and try to get some sort of degree in science or some sort. But I then decided that I'm going to investigate science, both physics, chemistry, etc., as a journalist. I am going to seek the truth and not the grade, nor the tenure whatsoever. So there's a lot of scientific protocols, etc., that I don't know because I wasn't formally trained, but then I now looked at it as a, per se, journalist. So when I saw this table, that now got me intrigued, and it became then also the basics and foundation of Tri-Vortex Technology. I then now finished off this table, the 1901 book. Many of the chemical elements had not been discovered in 1901. And so basically, now I finished off the table. And this now became the whole foundation of Tri-Vortex Technology. I have now, what I feel, broken the code on this. There is a harmonic code. If you look at this, is all harmonics. But then I was now looking for some sort of geometric pattern. And basically, again, now everything is all symmetry. Rather than this, we could go in, we could make this into a 2-day seminar. There's so much information that I have, and we're trying to condense this down as much as possible. So basically is also, I redid the table, the square table also. And if you also notice is that I also put the table of elements on a circle. And that also is very, very good in the analysis. And so that now became the foundation of all the frequencies that are now used in the stem cell stimulator all come from this table of elements. And so as we can see now, everything is all symmetry, all the way from basically, believe it or not, the lithium is a foundation for gold. They're all, there's so many elements that relate to one another. So now I was also looking for the geometric pattern. And I felt that the Great Pyramid in Egypt provided the very best geometric pattern. It is the only pyramid in Egypt that actually has the walls slightly indented. In actuality, what the Great Pyramid is a prism. It reflects light. This was also done by Bill Schul and Ed Pettit. They had taken a scale model of the pyramids and they actually then started indenting the walls. They did a laser beam study. And basically, they put a front-sided mirror that would come in, and basically, then it would reflect around. And when you put the walls flat, the beam would go off into nowhere. As soon as they started bringing in the walls, at a certain point, that light reflected right into the king's chamber area. So basically, what you're looking at is a prism. So I also then determined that there has to be the three-sided pyramid inside of the four-sided pyramid. We have a lot of math also. I'm not going to get into that today to prove this. So what I started doing is I had a program. I had just a little bit of knowledge about AutoCAD to be dangerous. And so I then started putting out all of these figures onto paper. When I did put it all on one piece of paper, I took a glass of wine and put it over and see if it would change it, and nothing happened. So I then started to separate them and put them in a very specific pattern, and I ended up with a piece of a stack of papers about 1 inch thick. Took my wine, put it over the top of it, and it's one of those aha moments. It changed the taste of the wine. I mean, radically too. And then I put it into a box and I would start pointing at people's pain and everything else like that, and it worked. And so I put a dome on it and it actually then magnified it. And so then I also got off and I started doing triangles and squares and all sorts of other things. Then I got into other patterns with my AutoCAD. It got real dangerous with it, is that I started doing all these other geometric patterns. And if you now were to take a glass of wine or a bottle of wine and actually come over to this screen, we've done this before, and actually put it on the screen, it will change the taste of the wine. Or you can do it on a computer monitor. It does the same thing. All of these figures will change the molecular structure of water. And I went through all of these gyrations and everything, and I still came back to 3 figures: the pentagram, the square, and the triangle. Again, we're just going to blast right through these because, again, it kind of gives a demonstration. So again, now I had the geometric patterns all done, and then synchronicity is that there was a program called Cool Edit Pro. Up until this time, you had signal generators, but you had no control over anything. Basically, you could create a frequency, but you had no control over its amplitude nor its phase. Again, this is the crux. It is the center point of Tri-Vortex Technology and the stem cell stimulator, is that we have to also control those type of aspects in any type of electromagnetic frequency or sound or whatever. So again, now is that we had the frequencies, and they're all having to do with vortexes. Here we have now the equilateral spiral and the Fibonacci and etc. What is interesting with the studies that I've done here is that nature always does a thing where it expands and it contracts. That's also one of the, again, the most important things of Tri-Vortex Technology is we take advantage of expanding and contracting. And when you take a Fibonacci spiral, it almost basically cannot collapse on itself. It gets very, very awkward. It can't really work on a contraction type of basis. And the equilateral spiral is basically cannot collapse. When it does it very, very slowly. So basically what we're having to do here is to come up with a whole nother type of vortexing. Maury King came up with a very, very good program yesterday where he showed the cloud actually having a pre-type of almost like a ball lightning before the lightning bolt took place. It is my estimation of what I've now, the 28 years that I have done this research over the years, is that whether you're doing lightning or if you are moving the great blocks in the great pyramids, as they did, which I think they did through levitation, they also probably formed and shaped them that way, is that they did it through electromagnetic fields. And those electromagnetic fields have to buckle, they have to expand and contract. And those that have the control per se over the electromagnetic field realm, I believe our ancients did. We've lost that. And again, it's like discovery, it's research. We're re-finding something we lost. And that's the control over buckling and contracting and expanding electromagnetic fields. That is the crux of everything, whether you want to do levitation, you want to do any type of, I don't like to use the word free energy, but basically some sort of energy device, I believe, is all going to come down to electromagnetic fields. So again, now we have the Adobe Edition 1.5. And so what I did is I took the values that I was doing in AutoCAD and I brought them over into Adobe Edition. And you have this program where you can now control the phase, you can control the amplitude, etc. So I was then able to almost literally take a triangle and build it into an electromagnetic field, literally building, and you can't see it, can't touch it, but it's electromagnetic. And so I got my first little crude program going, set up my speakers, Cleve was there, we got our wine, put it out there in the middle of the speaker, and lo and behold, another aha moment, we changed the taste of the wine simply by the speakers. Then one day I was doing my experiments and I set up an experiment. I do not know how still it happened to this day, but the speakers ended up not being connected. And I turned it on. I was in a big rush and I thought, okay, the program's going to start, and I took off. And I came back and I found out that the wires on both of my speakers had come off. I still don't know to this day how that happened, but the experiment actually still worked. What was actually really doing it, in actuality, it turned out the sound frequency, the acoustics was getting in the way. It was actually degrading the experiment, but what was actually working is we went from the computer to the amplifier to the speaker wire. And the speaker wire was actually what was doing it. It was the electromagnetic field that was actually changing the liquid. It was not the acoustics. So now we had all these fields coming up with all these phasings, and so I wanted to start, here we're going to start over here, we're going to try to do this whole sequence of now frequencies, and in hopes to doing all this changes and etc. And to do what I wanted to do would take 50 people working 24/7 for 3 years. For all the things that we need to do by just simply doing to this simple little program through Adobe Edition. We then came across a computer genius out of South Africa, and we now make the Tri-Vortex chamber, and basically we now have the frequencies here that we were using in the chamber, but this is now the crux also of Tri-Vortex Technology, is we had a computer genius out of, and a programming genius, And he created this program for us. So basically I can now dial in and say, okay, I want this electromagnetic field here, and this is where I want to end up, and I got to build all of these frequencies in between there. And they can do it now, what would take years, months, can now be done in 2 or 3 minutes. And it's all done through a logarithmical also compression, which is very, very important also. So this is also the real crux of Tri-Vortex Technology. I got a little ahead of myself here, we'll back up. And again, this also now is the Tri-Vortex chamber. There's 2 of them in the world. There's one in Cape Town, South Africa, and there's one in Palm Desert, California. Anything that goes into this chamber, and that's what also now is the crux for this Tri-Vortex disc. We also have other products we'll discuss here in just a moment. But this is also now the crux of Tri-Vortex Technology, is that the Tri-Vortex chamber, anything that goes into this chamber now comes out, and that item, it can be anything. Basically, there's not anything that can't be turned into a Tri-Vortex item. We use steel discs, we can also use laser, we can gold. Women send me their bras. And so basically is that then when it comes anywhere near a liquid or even a solid food, then it goes into sympathetic resonance. That liquids will go into sympathetic resonance with the Tri-Vortex. So it's a lot more of alignment. Again, we also have, as I said, a lot of, on the Tri-Vortex website, we have where people have used water on various type of agricultural and plants and et cetera, and that's all up on the Tri-Vortex website. So, come on, let's go, keep moving. So now we also have an area of what's called light particle assimilation, and basically, the foundation, keep going here, the foundation of light particle assimilation has to do with a discovery that was made in the late 1990s by traditional scientists. And it's now been buried, and you can hardly find any part of this research out there. But again, it was done by several independent laboratories and by universities. And what they discovered is that every human, animal, and plant cell has a phosphorus-based sheath that surrounds the cell. This to me is one of the most crucial things that's ever been discovered as far as human health, is this phosphorus sheath. And again, it's been very much repressed and buried. The researchers actually found when they went and examined this sheath, they actually saw vortexes in the sheaths. Now think about it. Phosphorus only allows light particles to go through it. So when a chemical element comes near our cells, it only pulls off the light particles. And then what's fascinating is those light particles are then reassembled into chemical elements inside of the cell. So there's 2 realities. There's a reality outside of the cell, and there's one inside the cell. And this is what we try to take advantage of in Tri-Vortex Technology, is to try to move as much possible of the light particles through the phosphorus sheath. Finally, there's a lot of scientists and researchers that are discovering that if there was no such thing as the chemical element of phosphorus on Earth, we simply wouldn't exist. Phosphorus is one of the key chemical elements. And again, when you take phosphorus and you separate it from every other chemical element, it makes a hissing noise and disappears. The only way phosphorus can exist in this dimension is by compounding with another chemical element. And that is, again, our entire sheath around biological life forms is all phosphorus-based. Understand, they keep saying the word DNA. Well, what is DNA? Its major constituent chemical element is phosphorus. There are other chemical elements in DNA other than phosphorus, but they're mostly there to help the phosphorus stay here. So it's all phosphorus-based, and that's what, again, when I started looking at the research, et cetera, is to aim and to right now try to penetrate the cell through that phosphorus sheath. And again, frequencies, et cetera, that will set up to put all of the energies through that phosphorus sheath. And the most important aspect, we can have all the machines, we can have all the technology, and you're going to go in and, okay, you may come to the stem cell and do it. The most important thing, though, to keep that sheath balanced is hydration. So the only thing that passes through the phosphorus sheath are the light particles, not the chemical elements. This was now, again, the foundation is that in 1984, I was one of the pioneers of underwater video. I was hired by ABC TV to do the windsurfing yachting segments, so I had my underwater housing for the Betacams and the Ikagamis. They were $50,000 video cameras, and we made underwater housings for them. And I put it on a float, and I was doing the windsurfing yachting segments. And so this one catamaran goes by, puts his dagger board up, and I'm right on the top of the dagger board. They actually use that segment. Every time they would go to commercial, they used that particular segment. So the pilot of that particular catamaran actually won the gold medal, and so then we decided that we'd go off in a little bay and we would try it again. Well, for some reason, he had his dagger board not that much off the air. Next time that we did it, he brought the dagger board much higher. And so we were all concerned about, we didn't want to hit the top dagger board, hit my head. We forgot about the bottom dagger board. And it came along and cracked me right on the knee. I thought I'd lost my leg, but the doctor said had it gone either lower or higher, it probably would have shattered a bone. But just fortunately, it hit on the strongest part of the knee. However, now that was 1984. Now we fast forward to 2004. And this knee, I had my Tri-Vortex technology and it was really working, but then it really started giving me some problems. And it was really crimping my lifestyle. I couldn't play basketball. You got to put your priorities straight, you know. And so I then started doing the research and found out about the hyaluronic acid. That is a substance between the bone and the cartilage. And so I thought, well, okay, that's probably also what's happening is somehow the hyaluronic acid has somehow, because of the trauma 20 years ago, is now affecting what's going on in my knee. So I went and bought a tablet of hyaluronic acid, put it on my knee. Of course, nothing happened. Then I took that same tablet and put it into the Tri-Vortex chamber and left it there for 24 hours, brought it out, put it on my knee, and again, it's one of those same things we did with the wine. It's that aha type of moment, and within 5 or 10 minutes, the knee pain was totally gone. I was the very first person then to experience light particle assimilation. We were now basically exciting the light particles in the hyaluronic acid. They were then able to penetrate right through that phosphorus sheath, right into the cells, and then build that phosphorus, or build the hyaluronic acid. I've never had any more problems with this knee whatsoever, and I'm still, at 63, still playing full court basketball. So again, light particle assimilation. I then, if it works with hyaluronic acid, well, it's got to work for other things too. So I started putting everything together, and now that became the basis of, all right, we're not moving forward here. There we go. What's our problem here? I don't know what's going on here. I'm trying to move forward. I'm hitting the forward button. There we go. So now that became, what we did is I then put every vitamin and mineral and nutrient known to mankind inside of a container. At first, they were small little things that went onto the wrist. So a distributor of mine out of Phoenix, Arizona, had breast cancer. And or no, ovarian cancer, but she was recovering, and nothing from Tri-Vortex at all. And so the medical doctor wanted to do a SpectraCell blood test. And so she went in for the test, and so then SpectraCell called back up the doctor and said, hey, you need to bring in this patient right away. They're overdosing. They're taking too many, especially the minerals. We have noticed here, we've never seen any higher rate of minerals on this, and this indicates that she's probably doing 2 or 3 times a day mega doses of the minerals. And so my distributor goes in, the doctor's shaking her finger at her and said, you got to stop doing all this. And my distributor goes, well, there's a problem here. She said, I've never taken a vitamin in my life, but I'm wearing this. So basically, the doctor said, get the hell out of my office. And so basically what was, again, she was one of also the very first persons also to really experience the benefits of light particle assimilation. So basically, they checked out the kidneys and the bladder and everything was all clear. So basically, is what Linus Pauling said, is that when the body is in stress, it's going to pull up a lot more vitamins and nutrients. So basically, by the vitamins and nutrients being excited by Tri-Vortex technology, at that time she was wearing them on the wrist, and basically what I feel happens is that the light particles then emanate out from the amulet. We also put the amulet into the chamber, and basically then they build the electromagnetic fields of the body. And then if the cell needs a particular vitamin or nutrient, it takes it up. If it doesn't need it, it doesn't take it up. My medical doctor business partner gathered together 20 people. 10 people were given a placebo. 10 people were given the real thing. We did SpectraCell blood tests on day 0. We did tests on day 40. Now, normally SpectraCell says when you start an oral regimentation of vitamins and nutrients, it usually takes 6 months to really, truly build that vitamin and nutrient in your body. Well, we did it at 40 days. The control group that was wearing the real thing, statistically, they all shot up. Everybody was either at right below deficiency or they were non-deficient. The group that wore the placebo, they all stayed about the same, except some of the vitamin B started spiking, but nothing where near deficiency. But there was statistically, we had to take note that vitamin Bs were spiking on this group. And we're scratching our heads here, what happened? And so what I had done is I used flour, plain white flour, as my placebo to give it still the weight. And so I used, however, what I had also done is I had used treated, the steel itself had been treated in the chamber, but not the flour. And so we're scratching our heads, what's going on? You know, why were these bees spiking up? And I called a lawyer friend of mine out of Austin. He started laughing, and he said, do you realize, he said, that the United States government states that all flours have to be vitamin B enriched. But they do it in almost homeopathic levels. So that was a surprise that we had in our trial. We had another surprise. The 21st person was the father of the medical doctor, my business partner. Diabetic, 74 years old. His first test, he had 8 deficiencies as a diabetic, and that's what you expect. At the end of it, he had 0 deficiencies. So, and there's lots of other also benefits that come through pain control. What I always recommend is to put, if you have like a shoulder problem or knee problem, is to put the disc on one side of the body, one side of the shoulder, and put the amulet on the other side with a wrap of some sort, and does some really amazing pain relief. Okay, do we have low batteries or something here? Okay, we're not getting forward here.
Let's do this.
Okay, there we go. So now what we're basically looking at, okay, that's probably what I'm doing, is not just a projector, okay. So now we have the Tri-Vibes, and it comes in all different types. And what we do have found out that the gold does work better. We have gold-plated stainless steel and regular stainless steel. So, no, we're still not working. All right.
Thank you, kind sir. We're going to check this. Oops, hold on. I'm going to restart you right back.
No, that's okay. I can keep going. Oh, okay, I got it. Oops, okay. No, yeah, I hit the button again. If we can hit it again, we can go where I was.
Okay, roger that. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see here.
Tri-Vibes, that's be good right there. Okay, so now, again, we did the micro testing through the SpectraCell Labs. Then the next thing occurred is this is a sound unit that was built in Germany back in the 1970s. And I had an idea, okay, well, possibility, what we can do is, could the sound wave act as a carrier for the vitamins and nutrients? So what I did is to take a pouch, a plastic pouch of the Tri-Vibes, and I put them right here in this head. And I put them in, then everything went back into the Tri-Vortex treatment chamber. So then I also now started marketing these as what they call the tri-intersound units. And again, my client out of the same person that had done the ovarian cancer, she bought one of these, and she was working with a diabetic. And he was in very much dire condition. His left leg was near amputation. His insulin rates were all over the place. So what she did is, again, we put it in the chamber, is this flat head, we started running up and down the leg, especially right over the tibia, up and down, of doing this sound wave. The sound wave goes from 10 hertz all the way up to 10,000 hertz. That's what we call it infrasound. The normal scientific community won't even recognize these frequencies, and that's why we call it infrasound. That's why I call it tri-infrasound, because they only start at 10,000 hertz and go up. So basically, this particular type of frequency is not even recognized. So basically now we have the Tri-Vibes that are up in the head here. It's all treated, and now the sound wave is acting as a carrier for the vitamins and nutrients, almost like a needle. Basically, it's like an injection right into the body. That's what I was speculating what would happen. So this lady started moving up and down, did twice a day on this diabetic's leg. One of the very first things that happened was the insulin rates almost instantly after starting all balanced out. He was no longer having any problems with his insulin. 1 month later, the leg was totally back to normal. What the hell happened? I mean, I didn't expect this at all. I mean, this was not anything. I thought, okay, we might get a little pain, we might do a little this, but to reverse a diabetic in this type of way, that was not projected at all. So I started, what was going on? Why was this occurring? The only way I could then say is that basically with that tibia, that's the longest bone in the body that's now producing stem cells. So basically what this was doing was stimulating the stem cells. It was also at the same time converting them. So that started me thinking, well, how can we now take advantage of this? There has to be something here that we could take advantage of. Now, previous to this time, because of all these frequencies that we've been using, is that I then found a set of frequencies through this computer logarithmic type of thing where I came out of the two positive poles from the computer coming out of the two positive poles of the amplifier. And one day I started doing my little tones, kind of set it up and everything, and I wired it so a normal AC plug would go into the two positive poles. Plugged in a lamp. The lamp illuminated. I mean, totally normal illuminated. As far as I know, I'm the very first person, I heard nobody else that's doing it, where they actually can run a small appliances off of a computer and an amplifier. But understand, I'm going two positive poles. That's very important. And also, what's really interesting about this is the frequencies are now running anywhere between 1,000 to 7,000 hertz. Here's, a 60, we're supposedly said we only have 60 hertz we run everything at. Well, now here, this is running between 1,000 and 7,000 hertz, and the bulb is, really, really bright and a lot less heat. And so again, that was like, I did this 10 years ago. And I put it in the back of my mind, and it's like, okay, kind of shelved it. I can also run, I would set it up where I had my laptop running. And so it would come around, and I was actually running the laptop off of the computer and the amplifier. So instead of plugging it into the wall, I was plugging it into my amplifier. So I also can do lasers, it can do everything. But again, remember now, I'm coming off the two positive poles. What about these two negative ones? How can they be taken advantage of? So that, then, I now brought in this particular type of thing. Okay, we've set up this, we've stimulated the stem cells, we've turned them on. Now, how could we stimulate the stem cells, but yet give it a positive charge? And if we gave a positive charge to a stem cell, could we move the stem cell itself? By having a positive charge, could we now attract that stem cell or the stem cell energies to a target area? So if we put stimulated our stem cells, say in the tibia, which is the largest bones, it makes the most logical, and we stimulated it here, could we now attract that to the area, to the target area? Would that have any type of value? So basically, then I came up with this drawing. It stayed in my computer for a year. And basically then we have a computer with the audio signal going to the amplifier, and then coming out, we would then now power our various types of instruments from lasers. We'd also put a pulse directly right over and into the tibia. Then we would have our ground wires. So it stayed theoretical for almost a year. Then finally, I was now living in Florida at the time. I was a consultant at that time with Hippocrates Health Institute. I'm no longer associated with Hippocrates, but I then convinced the director then at that time, Brian Clement. I had this idea, and I said, now I could put all this together. It wouldn't cost any money. I'm going to do it myself. Just give me the space. You've got the people at Hippocrates, because a lot of people are coming there with cancer, etc. So basically, then we did our first now. Come on now. Yeah. We did now our first stem cell stimulator. This is the very crude stem cell stimulator. We have now a laser. It is running by, again, the computer. We have on the leg the stimulating the positive charge, and now we have the negative. This lady was a trapeze type of performer, and she took wrenched her elbow out and had tremendous problems with her elbow and her shoulder. And so now she laid on the table for approximately about an hour. We did a before photograph. This is the farthest that she could bring her arms together. After 1 hour, then we now had this. And that was, again, this is the real crude part of the stem cell stimulator. Then moved from California, or from Florida to California. And then came up with the very first applicators. This is what goes onto the tibia. And these are the two grounds. So we have two grounds because this is the positive going into the tibia. Left, usually you put it on the left tibia, and then here's the ground for it. This ground is for the lasers, the lights, anything that's also being used electronically to pulse in. We're now grounding to this area. It drives the electricians and electrical people crazy because basically I have to put now paper insulators on these grounds because and especially this one here, now you have a laser that's going into the leg. Okay, and you have other lights and you have everything going on. If I don't do that, this ground will actually shock you. There is a field that is being created between the two. And this drives the electrical people crazy. That shouldn't happen. That should not occur. So again, we're now using, again, the vortex type of thing. This again, this was the prototype type of applicators that go on the body. We no longer use these. And so here we have now Gilda. She was one of the very first persons that came to the stem cell in Hippocrates, a 85-year-old woman. She had a major spur on her foot, and she was using a cane for 3 years because every time she stepped on the ball of her foot, it was like a nail and a spur right into the ball of her foot. She also had a very incurable, rare type of skin cancer on her cheek that the lesion would not ever close. And the traditional science had tried everything, and again, now she was here at Hippocrates. And so basically, again, now what we were doing is what I felt the very first thing that needed to be done is we needed to take care of this ball of the foot first. Because that was also one of the reasons why the cheek wasn't healing, because she was constantly in stress. So this was our first target area. And again, now the applicator had already been on here first. Now we were using this tri-infrasound unit because now we flooded the area with the stem cells. Now we want to do is turn those stem cells on, and that's what we use the tri-infrasound unit for, is to now flood that area and turn it on. So she's now 1 hour into her first treatment. She gets up from the table. They hand her her cane. She said, "My foot doesn't hurt." And she started walking towards the door. And she turned around, gave her cane to her daughter, and she never used the cane again. The lesion on her cheek was healed in 3 days. The daughter called me and said, we put the applicator right over, we did the same procedure right on the cheek that same day. And the daughter called me and said, the cheek is like a fire engine. She said, it's just this bright red all around the area. I said, well, it sounds like we really got a lot of blood going in the area. I said, is there any pain? She said, no. She said, for the first time in 2 or 3 years, she has no pain in the cheek also. So then the cheek then basically closed up in 3 years. All right? So basically, this is now the stem cell stimulator of today. We now have a water table, and it has frequencies that are running at 5,000 or 500 hertz. What goes on to the shin bone runs between 2,500 and 5,000 hertz. What I did is I took those frequencies and moved the decimal point over 1, because the table will not run at those frequencies. It only runs between at the most 1,000 hertz. So the table is now running at the same, all those phases and everything. Basically, it's we figured out that it probably is somewhere around 500,000 signals for over the minute and a half time now that the Tri-Vortex, the frequencies now run. It's about 500,000 frequencies. And so these tables are already available, but the table I had special built is it has 3 transducers underneath. Most of them only have 2. And so I have 3 here, breaking it up, basically also breaking up the frequencies, is that it's almost like a 3D. When it hits, when it goes into the body, it's doing in a 3D type of manner. When it comes to the target area, now that all of those little pieces and everything of the electromagnetic signal now gather right over the target area. So we now have a water table. This is a UVA, UVB light. And again, it's being powered by the computer and the amplifier. And the UVA and UVB have been proven to stimulate stem cells. The same thing also, the frequency of this laser has also been proven to stimulate stem cells. Oddly enough, it's just a plain old disco laser, and that frequency has actually been proven to stimulate stem cells. And again, that is all done with the using the computer and the amplifier. And again, that's all done with a positive pole. So this particular laser goes into the tibia of the right shin bone, or the tibia bone on the right. So on the left, we have the applicator. On the right, we have the laser. And everything is all now coming to the target area. And now everything is now all coordinated. They're floating on water, totally relaxed. That's one important thing, is to relax the individual. So let those stem cells flow. We always give them a little bit of coconut water to help out any type of electrolytes and everything before they get on the table. We also very much encourage, again, hydration before and especially after they get off the table, is to have them really drinking a lot of water. This is the crux also now of Tri-Vortex Technology and also the stem cell stimulator, is that we have now a ozone generator, and this is the Synergy 400. This is the one that I prefer. Everybody else can have their own different type of ozone generators. It comes out of the oxygen concentrator. The gas comes through and now comes into a special blend of hemp and CBD oil. The ozone generator is now being powered by the computer and the amplifier. It's got a positive charge. Personally, myself, I don't believe there's such a thing as O3. I'm going what Nikola Tesla said. He said that oxygen is the only chemical element that will actually compound with an electrical charge. So when that oxygen concentrator comes through with its oxygen, actually what's compounding is an electrical charge. Very important. And now that electrical charge comes into the oil. It discharges off of the gas, creates a new chemical reaction. That chemical reaction creates a new chemical bond. The ozone now is changed. Or let's say the ozone, we're calling what I call ozone is actually the electrical charge, is now also changed. Now this is going out into cannules, and the person is now breathing this oil. It now has a positive charge. It is now coming, the hemp oil, the CBD. Hemp oil is a high saturated fat, so is CBD, and you need to break the bonds, or you need to help the hemp oil so it can absorb faster. And so that's where we have a proprietary blend of oils to help the hemp oil and the CBD almost have an instant type of absorption. So now it's given a positive type of charge, and you're now breathing this positive hemp ozone. It wants to go to the ground. So now we put it, again, everything is all concentrating. So we basically have the only system in the world that can take hemp oil and CBD oil and basically target it and bring it to a target area. And that is why we're getting so many of these successes with the stem cell. is that we're now coordinating everything, all the lights, all of the pulses, and again, all these little pieces all came together. This has not been a sprint. This has been a marathon. But the marathon now is that we're going to be sprinting now, because this is, again, the latest generation. We're now going to a second generation of applicators. So this is, again, the tibia. And then basically now we have the 2 applicators for the ground, for the lasers and the lights and etc. And again, there's also lights that are underneath the table that are also taking advantage. And again, they're all grounding towards it. So we have the ground for the tibia, and then we have the grounds for all the lights to come in. So we also have ozone oils that we also produce with the same process. It has now been the only oil that's been proven to reverse skin damage caused by the sun. And it also does all sorts of injuries, where we also use it in the Tri-Vortex stem cell, is that we also encourage people to also insert it rectally. Is that basically when the oil is injected rectally, the blood vessels in the rectum take the oil everywhere through the body. And it's, I think, the most superior way if you're trying to do anything coming in. So can we have about 5 more minutes? Give me
5 more minutes?
Yeah, okay. I can't, regretfully, this is a little bit too small. Basically, these are now the protocols. The reason why I brought this one back is that the gentleman here also, what I considered had a lot of dental problems. And so one of the first things that I recommended when he came in is that he take care of his teeth, is that he probably had all different types of bacteria. And the reason why this SID rate also went down is that we've discovered a way of to actually clean out the teeth. So regretfully, I should have made this slide bigger. These are the protocols. Basically, when you come in, we deal with the teeth. And then having the transformed plant oils, we also have a thing called the cling wrap protocol. I got bit by as I said, the brown recluse spider. I got bit in the elbow. I had a hematoma from all the way from here all the way up. My swelling, it was really in bad shape. And so what I did is I put silver hydrosol. I sprayed it on, and then I put my oil on. First, I wrapped it in gauze and left it on there. It didn't do a thing. So the next night, my wife, who's a veterinarian, said, "You got 2 choices. I mean, you're either going to the emergency room or you got to do something about it." So I said, okay, I'm going to give this thing one more chance. And I did the cling wrap. And this time, what I did, instead of putting the gauze on, I put the cling wrap protocol or cling wrap on. So I put silver hydrosol, oil and liquid and oil or gel, then the oil, then the wrap. Put it on. It was 11 o'clock at night. Between 12 and about 2 o'clock in the morning, my arm was on fire. It was one of the, you couldn't imagine. It's like somebody had a flame up and down. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I took it off. I looked at it. Said, "Hey, Linda, you got to come look at this." And she comes around. Oh, she's laughing. "Oh, you're going to have to go to a real doctor, aren't you?" There's very few things that my wife, she is an expert in spay-neuter, and she also does emergency room. So it takes a whole lot for her to make her speechless. She looked at my arm, and she was speechless. Literally, and within 3 hours, the hematoma was totally gone, and the swelling had gone down like 85%, all within 3 hours. That is now also, the cling wrap protocol is now part of the whole process now of the stem cell stimulator. So when people come in, for example, the gentleman that had the lymphoma, and both of these gentlemen that had lymphoma, we also did the cling wrap protocol. So there are, again, there's a little bit too small here. We're running out of time. But again, I think basically we have we've covered the basics of the stem cell, is that We basically use now just simple type of technology. The most complex thing is the computer frequencies. There are literally 500,000 different frequencies that are now pulsed into the body. They actually drive the light sources, and they all ground with the hemp oil and the CBD to the target area, and then we use the tri-infrasound unit to turn those stem cells on. And the also now is coming up, we can get to the slide, this is the new home for the stem cell stimulator. The doctor who did the AKG originally on my wife, he had a dental problem, and it turned out to be a big disaster, and he ended up with heart failure and heart problems. And he has a reduced amount of blood that flows out of the heart. Fortunately, he had done a test right before he came and did a stem cell sessions, and he also was wearing the Tri-Vibes. So he had a before test to look what his outflow was. 2 weeks after he finished everything, he then did a second test. He increased his output by 30%. So between my wife and all these other stories and everything, he has invited me now to place a stem cell stimulator into his office. So we're sort of like legitimate, and hopefully we're going to have our little grand opening in October. And again, hopefully we can expand this to put the stem cell stimulator into clinics all over the world. We also then can put just the oxygen concentrator, the ozone generator, and the oils. I also sell those personally to people. If they want to have their own personal type of item, they can now have it with the special oils. And if they also want it, they can also have it with the computer where they're actually doing the grounding, but that's much more expensive. We do have the software program that also can protect us so nobody can copy the software. So I guess we'll open this up now to any type of questions. Over here.
Bring the questions back here.
We have the questions in the Q&A box back at Vernon, and could we only take one or two? We're just about out of tape, and then Brian will be in the foyer, so let's take about 2 to 3 minutes for the questions, and then Brian will be in the foyer.
Okay.
What is your experience with nervous disorders, seizures, depression, mental and physiological? Do you have any?
We have, yes. When I was at Hippocrates, we had a few cases of everything what you're mentioning. And again, what we have found that there really has not been any type of physical condition that the stem cell cannot address. And there's no contraindications. Go ahead.
Have you worked with any Lyme's disease patients?
Pardon?
Any patients with Lyme's disease?
Yes, I have, and we have definitely helped any types of pain and discomfort, especially the fatigue. We've helped the fatigue tremendously.
Has it reduced the disease?
Yeah, all we can say is we can absolutely where we can help the symptoms. What has been the problem so far is that actually applying this on a long-term type of basis. People will come in for a short term, and then they're out and they're gone. And so we get these really good results right in the beginning, but then they've got to go. So hopefully now with being in clinics and everything, we can actually now do this thing more on a long-term type of basis. So to answer your question, the preliminary one's very, very encouraging. Next.
Have you pursued the concept of you using your audio the German device where you put the vitamins in and use that more to, to give people the vitamins? Have you pursued that and say, okay, here's our little ultrasonic device?
Oh yeah, and again, the tri-infrasound unit is for sale. You can purchase them. We have them both in used models and brand new. And again, as I said, we could have had a 2-day little seminar on this. I've compacted so much into this 1 hour. But basically, if you go up to the Tri-Vortex website, just trivortex.com, there's all sorts of videos. We have the video on the 2 gentlemen that came in with the lymphoma cancer. Have all different types of things up on the website. Generally, it would probably take you a good day to go through all the material of the website. Trivortex.com, Trivortex TEX.com. I do have discs, I do have Tri-Vibes for sale out here. I have a limited amount, but however, if I sell out, then basically I can be shipped to you on